Okay, what's up? Welcome to episode 22 of the RUDIS Wrestling Podcast. Matt, we're talking scuffle today. That I thought that was fun. Not as strong. You and I texted, not as strong. We were initially intending to do another podcast, and we looked at those first rounds, and we're like, there's just not much to talk about. But I enjoyed the finals. Good tournament. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think overall, last night was really entertaining. I think there was some good semifinal matches, like you said, not overall, not the depth or the quality that we're accustomed to with the Southern Scuffle. I think same thing that we kind of said about the Midlands, and I think there's a variety of factors to do with that, along with the South Beach duels. But overall,
Well, yeah,
last
let's talk about that, Matt. What do you? Because I texted you as a fan, I'm highly annoyed by it, but as a coach, and you told me you thought you were a coach a year or 2 years ago. You thought about going down there, um, and so as a coach, I think I get it. As a fan, I'm annoyed by it. But man, they got 15, there are 16 teams now, so they're not like a small little podunk thing. Think about this. It's only 80 Division I teams. That's like 20% of them.
Yeah, and I mean, down there at the South Beach Duels, I think there's a good cross section of talent. There's some high end teams, some mid level teams, and some lower level teams. So um, it definitely kind of like split the forces of Midlands and the Scuffle. And like you said, 20% of the teams were down at the South Beach Duels. So when you divide up, there's a limited number of teams to begin with. So when you divide it up into three
Yeah.
different ways, it kind of like it definitely looks like the competition is watered down on all three levels. But um,
So
yeah, I
let,
mean,
let me let me just read this list of teams here, Matt. This is South Beach Jewels. Cornell, Indiana, Kent State, Lehigh, Michigan State, Minnesota, Missouri, NC State, North Carolina, North Dakota State, Purdue, Southern Illinois, Utah Valley, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. I mean, there's some really good teams on that list. There's what, 5 or 6 top 25s, probably 3 top 10s on the list.
Yeah, and you've got to argue that there's probably 3 of the top 6 teams maybe with,
Well, Cornell,
Missouri,
Mizzou,
Cornell, Minnesota's looking really good
NC
right
State's got
right
a
now,
good team.
and NC State. Yeah, so, arguably 4 of the top 10 teams were down there. So, as far as concentration of talent, you could almost argue that South Beach Duels had
More.
the biggest concentration of talent as far as depth and quality. And so when you remove those 4 teams out of either the Midlands or the Scuffle, yeah, it definitely has a dramatic impact on the depth to the event. I think there's great individual quality at Midlands and the Scuffle, but overall depth, it definitely makes it look a little bit more watered down, especially as opposed to what we were treated to in Las Vegas earlier in the month,
Yeah,
where that was it
absolutely.
looks like now, like, for sure, Las Vegas was
Number
the
one.
best the number 1 tournament, during the season in the country, so
Absolutely. Um, yeah, and so we talked about it, but no one's talking about South Beach Duels. I guess that's kind of the power of flow right now. Yianni and Eierman mixed it up down there, and no one's talking about it. There were some other, I'm looking through the results. And I'm like, wow, there's some really good matches out here, and nobody's talking about it. And I guess that's the power of flow at this point to dictate what the narrative is. And it's almost like if it doesn't happen on flow, it's almost in a vacuum. I mean, literally, Matt, I haven't seen one person on Twitter, and I follow a decent amount of wrestling people, talking about Yianni Ironman. Not one person.
no, and that was, I mean, one of the better matches of the year already. I
Yeah.
mean, that was a really good match, really strategic matchup. Um Yeah, and I heard, Yanni discuss it the other day. I actually didn't get to see the match. I mean, those matches, like you said, to your point, those matches were really hard to track down and hard to follow. But yeah, this early on in the season, the Yanni Ironman match, I mean, surprisingly, it was ended up what, 3-1?
Yep, through on, which is something that I would also never predict out of those two. Is a really really low scoring match. Um, one of the other things, since we are getting into matches there before we scoot over to the scuffle, one of the things I wanted to bring up that you and I went kind of nuts about this guy last week is Vitalia Ruja. Um, He won. I think he won all of his matches, but he had a 4-2 overtime against Dak Punky out of Missouri, who's that's really, Missouri's second string guy, and um, no one's thinking Dak Punky is going to be an All American this year, although he's scrappy. But for a Rouge to have to go overtime against him, man, that maybe should maybe kind of pull back a little bit, just a little bit on what we were saying about Vitali.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost say let's give him another couple weeks to get his weight acclimated.
Sure.
I know that. I mean, that's a big cut for him. I mean, he hasn't been that low since I think his
Yeah.
junior in high school,
Yep.
sophomore, junior year in high school. So I think same way with Pantaleo. I think he had some sickness going on from what you said on the last podcast. But with Vito, I think you got to give him a handful of weigh-ins to get truly acclimated to see what he can do and how he can perform on the highest level. With a quick turnaround. I think I mentioned this, especially with Pantaleo the other day. I think it's not just the first weigh in, but the second day
Yep.
to weigh in 2 days in a row. Especially that second day when you have an hour weigh in and a pound, but that pound doesn't mean that much.
It doesn't.
So
Doesn't mean
you
that
know,
much at all.
so those multiple weigh-ins, I think a lot of people don't factor that in. They just think, "Oh, he made weight." Well, it's just how your body recovers,
Yep.
after 3 matches to turn around, make weight again, and turn around within an hour and do it, compete again multiple times on a day. I think he's gonna be fine, and I think there might be a few more results like this where he may not look his best, and you may scratch your head and say, "Oh, maybe he's not that good." It's like, well, it maybe just enough that it's just making weight. I gotta make weight. I gotta feel comfortable. I gotta get some of those reps underneath my belt.
Yeah. So we'll let him slide.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
fair. Okay, let's get into the scuffle. So essentially, for me, this tournament was Penn State, Oklahoma State. They kind of both of them just run away. Iowa State's in third, but they're a distant third, like way, 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 way back. Um, And I thought honestly, I thought both Penn State and Oklahoma State looked really good. Maybe it was because of the depth of the field, but I left the feeling in our last podcast that I thought that Iowa did not look very good. I thought Oklahoma State and Penn State looked really good here. Are you left with the same feeling? Are you thinking pull back a little bit on Oklahoma State? I mean, even you could say there was a few chinks in the armor of Penn State if you want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, no, I mean, if anything, I was gonna say, like, I was really impressed with Okie State. I thought they performed on a really high level. I think, both teams showed that they both have a couple of holes. Um, But I think Penn State's strength is so great at some of their other ways at some of their other weights that the holes, that they have are minimized and
Yep.
not quite as obvious. Um, but yeah, what Penn State had 6 champs, Okie State had 4. So I mean, definitely the class of the field. Um, I think both teams did both teams place all 10 of their guys? I think Penn State
Um,
actually placed
Penn State.
14, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, so Penn State obviously they didn't place anyone at 125 pounds. Schnupp, and then obviously Teasdale didn't make weight, so they did not have a placer there. But Penn State had two in the finals at 157, for example. So they had multiple places other ways, but they did not have a placer at 125 pounds. And then Oklahoma State did not have a placer at 141 because Cade Brock pulled up lame with an injury in the round of what, round 16, maybe I think it
16.
was.
Yep.
So yeah, so they both were left without one placer or a placer at one of the weights, but yes, they both had multiple placers at certain other weights. Um, yeah, so it's actually quarterfinals. He doesn't even wrestle, is what it looks like against Real Woods. So that was disappointing. Honestly, that makes the team. I don't think they have a chance of winning, but that makes the team competition significantly closer if Cade Brock does say win the tournament or get at least get into the finals against Nick Lee, which I
Yeah, as you as you think that he would have done. He would have made, obviously, Real Woods makes the finals against Nick Lee, who was supposed to wrestle Cade Brock. But yeah, you put a healthy Cade Brock in there and performing at the level that we think he could. Yeah.
Oh, well,
So
that's a point of contention.
yeah. So if he performs at the level we think he could, he makes it to the finals with Nick Lee. I think it closes up the team race a little bit, but I think Penn State still gets it. Yeah, I think the other thing, the obvious conversation, or the one thing that people were talking about early on was Teasdale being in the lineup. He
Yeah.
was entered as you know, one of Penn State's guy. They pulled his red shirt, and he didn't make weight. I don't know the circumstances behind that. Um, but yeah, I think, you know, kind of much ado about nothing. People were kind of excited about him being in the lineup and seeing what he could do, and then he doesn't make weight, or I don't know if there was an injury, or I don't know what the circumstances were there, but really, a moot point. I mean, he didn't wrestle, so what
Why
happens?
didn't he wrestle? I wanna know. No one's talking. I think he didn't make weight, but no one's talking about it. Why is no
Yeah,
one talking
I don't
about it?
I don't know. I didn't hear anything. Usually, there's at least some discussion, but
Ca
it's kind of radio silence.
Kia, can we talk about this for a second, Matt? And this is maybe a topic you don't want to breach. But obviously Teasdale had the medical withdrawal first semester, and now they're not only bringing him back but throwing him straight into the starting lineup. And medical withdrawal makes me think that he was having some type of issues, whether it was, he was partying too much and his grades were terrible, and they just wanted to get him out of all of his classes, so he didn't get 4 Fs or something. Um, Maybe there was some more serious issues in that. I obviously I don't know. Again, no one's talking about that. But if I think if there's one serious knock on Cael, and I talked today about how I think Cael is raising the bar um so high that people need to step up to get to it. But there's one knock is that Cael has a flexible I don't want to say flexible morals for himself, but for the guys he has on his team. I mean, people bring up when they brought Andrew Long in from Iowa State just because they needed him. They don't have Andrew Long that year. They don't win NCAAs. And I want to know, is this another one of those? Does Teasdale have larger issues than we're being told? Or what is the deal here?
Well, I would say if they felt strong enough that they would actually enter in the tournament, whatever issue he had, they probably felt it reached to the point where they've moved beyond it, or he's healthy enough, or again, I don't know what's going on with the situation, but you know, um, I believe that Kale probably thought that the situation was remedied enough to the point that they felt strongly enough that he could compete. But also, I think obviously the spotlight, the magnifying glass is on Penn State, good or bad, for
Yeah.
all the good things they do. They get a lot of high praise. People would probably say excessive praise in some light, but
Yeah.
also when there's any negativity associated with the program, that's also magnified. And so they're saying, oh, whatever the situation. And I get the
Well,
Andrew
it will,
Long reference,
but it would
but
help, Matt, if they actually addressed it. If they said something that I mean, that would help. You can't speculate if they just go ahead and address it.
yeah, but that's not really our business. I think as fans of the sports, or people that commentate on the sport or have insight in the sport, not only just us, but I think everybody thinks that they have the right and the privilege to know everything that's going on, and it's none of anybody's business. I
But
mean,
it
really.
does end speculation, though. If there's speculation, it ends it when you just come out and tell people what the deal is, and then obviously, you're not.
No, it ends curiosity for the general public. It doesn't end speculation. I mean, we don't have the right to know that. I mean, how they want to run their program and the information they share, that's nobody's business.
Let
So
me think.
I
If
get where you're coming from, but Kale's responsibility is to the guys in his team to safeguard the guys in his team, good or bad. And we may think, hey, we need to, bare your warts, or, unveil your scars, but that's nobody's business. And you may
Sure.
disagree with how he runs his business. And it's not just when it comes to the guys in the team, it's kind of everything about the program. Like, not that it's shrouded in mystery, but
A little bit, it is. It is a little bit.
it is, and that's his prerogative, right? I mean, that's
Sure.
the way he run. I mean, if you really look at most programs out there, they don't talk about everything that's going on. Um, they may be a little bit more open, a little bit
Well,
more
I mean,
accessible,
Matt,
and
I would argue that, wrestling is more closed off in to certain extents than, most mainstream sports. I mean, almost every football team and basketball team has a injury report that comes out on a regular basis that says
yeah, but there's
exactly
also
what's wrong with that
guidelines.
person and, are they probable to be back? Are they unlikely? Like, I don't know, I feel like it's more shrouded in secrecy than most sports.
Yeah, but I think when you're talking about professional sports, there's,
Well, I think college does it
um
too, right? Or no? I mean, I don't watch football barely at all anymore.
not a ton. I mean, there's always the game day decisions,
Okay.
even in college, but in the professional ranks, like, talk about your Green Bay Packers, right? I
Mhm.
mean, they're public shareholders. The public owns the Green Bay Packers, so there's a responsibility to the public as
Well, Penn
shareholders
State's a
in the
public institution. I pay my Pennsylvanians pay their taxes for it, right?
uh, this is true, but
Uh,
you're also, um
I
a
get your
lot of
point.
time and in the college ranks, there's also in academia, there's HIPAA laws and stuff that you can't publicly comment about
Yeah,
unless the student athlete or unless the student signs a waiver and grants you access to private things on their academic and personal file. So there are actual, you know, technicalities that they, if you really wanna push it, they could step behind the HIPAA laws and say that, you know, it's they don't have they're not allowed to comment publicly if you
yeah,
really wanna push it. Now that's semantics. I mean, you're definitely hiding behind things. The bottom line is, that's the stance that Cael has decided to take.
sure,
They keep things close to the vest, and, I get why people are a bit frustrated, but I would just simply say it's none of their business,
fair enough.
and yeah.
Yeah, and I think Kale obviously gets the worst rep for it, but I do think the other major programs, you know, Tom Brands went and heads and this and what was it, the Lehigh duel, and they said this is going to be our lineup for the significant future, and then there was four changes. Literally, the next duel there was four different changes. So, yeah, Kale,
But I guess people would say, but well, Tom Brands, if you look what he's been doing on Flow and different things, like he's given a lot of access to the program
yes,
in other areas. And you could say
Kale gives no
he gives,
access,
yeah,
none.
across the board. So I guess I can appreciate his consistency there. It's not just on one aspect of the program. It's over all areas of the program. This is his policy where, other programs kind of selectively pick and choose
Yep.
where they give more public access to.
Yeah, that's fair, but they are you're the overall wrestling culture is a little more secretive than maybe certain other sports, which is um that's fine. So we've been talking a lot of philosophical stuff this morning. Let's get into the wrestling.
Yeah,
Um
because there's a ton of good stuff going on last night.
okay, 25. I'm kind of whatever on 25. Kind of like 33 at Midlands. Pitching any wins good, but not a huge amount of great competition. You anything else you want to put in about 25?
No, I mean, especially in light of the result at the Midlands Championships, you gotta think Piccanini, he's undefeated, I think 18-0 on the
Yep.
year and kinda dominant. I mean, he's looked pretty dominant all
Mhm.
year long. So, I mean, he's gotta be one of those guys that's in the discussion with Spencer Lee and Sebastian Riviera and now Nick Piccanini has at least stamped himself as one of those guys that we got to look at. That's not a surprise, right? I mean,
No,
he's
it's not a
returning
surprise.
All American, ranked top four. I mean, I think he's looked really, really good. Is another guy like Spencer Lee, like, watch out. He gets that first takedown, you better watch out
Yeah,
because what the heat he's bringing on top, and it's not just, he goes both ways with his cross wrist.
yep,
So I
he's
mean,
got
he's
great tilt
he's
series.
really, really versatile on top with that cross wrist series.
Yeah, and so, I would agree, but I would hold back on him. He's had his shots at those guys, and he has not proved to us to this point that he can beat them, and obviously, you could say the same about Rivera versus Lee before this week. Um, so, I'm gonna hold my horses. I think it's Rivera, Lee, Bresser, top 3. I want to say picking in. He's on the outside looking in. He will have a guy that we are both very high on. He'll have Patrick Glory on that's in at Princeton January 12th. And then really as I look through the rest of his schedule, he doesn't have another match until Spencer Lee, which is February 24th in Gallagher Iba Arena. So that will be, those are his two real big ones left for the season before the Big 12s.
Holy cow, this is just a sidebar. Who isn't Princeton wrestling this year?
Damn,
It
right? Now that
seems
you
like
say
they're
that,
wrestling
they
everybody.
wrestle everybody. I'm gonna click on them. Hold on. Well, they were at Wisconsin. They were at Iowa. They're at the Midlands. Let's see. Where's their? I can't find wrestling on their damn sports. Oh, I'm under women's sports. I'm an idiot. My bad. They have a lot of sports at their school. Jeez Louise.
They do. 30, I think they have one of the biggest
Okay.
athletic departments in the
Yeah,
country.
Matt. They got
30, well over 30 programs, I believe.
they got a schedule, boy. They wrestled Iowa, at Wisconsin, at Lehigh, at Virginia Tech, at Virginia, Midlands, and then they got North Carolina, Oklahoma State, and then they get in. Then after that, they get into their Ivy League schedule. So
Taking on all
yeah,
comers this
they,
year.
they did, man. They went and got it. It was at there was that was five ats in a row, which means there were some road warriors that first semester.
Wow.
Yeah, nice. Okay, what 133? Now I have to eat some crow because I said Roman Bravo Young could be an NCAA finalist this year.
And
And
I think that's still on the table.
you
I
think?
really do.
Okay,
I
so
do.
obviously I'm not saying just because he got thrown by um Austin Gomez, I'm taking it off the table. But I guess what I will say is he didn't look great before then. And I don't even know these guys. The Girardi kid from Virginia Tech, he looked Nick Farrow, and then first round, I don't know who that guy was either. It was D Young. I don't know him. Um, Another 4-3 match. So he didn't look like if you take all of his matches up until this point. And then take how you wrestled this weekend, I feel like it's a little bit two different things. That's
No, day one, I know we were sharing texts. We were like, "Uh-oh."
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, well, what's up?
because, how he had looked the first 6 weeks of the season and how dominant he looked in every situation was pretty impressive, but with the caveat, like, he hadn't really wrestled anybody,
Uh-huh.
of note, which he didn't really on day one either, and
No.
he looked vulnerable. I mean, he had an overtime match. He had a 2-point match. I mean, some very close matches in day one. Day two, he came out against Gomez, and man, he really looked good that first period. Was up
Yeah.
8-2, I believe. Got some back points, so it looked a little worse than it really was.
Yeah,
But
but I was also impressed with just his variety, and this is kind of what I saw earlier in there, but his variety of attacks and his hustle. I think he hit a slide by. I think he hit a duck under. He had some really close headlock go behinds or down block go behinds, and so he just kind of movement looked great. Everything looked really, really, really good in that first period.
and then, to give Gomez credit, I mean, he's good. He's a guy that was really highly ranked coming out of high school, had a
Yep.
great redshirt year, was
Yep.
actually undefeated in his redshirt year, made the world team, got injured, right?
Yeah.
So didn't compete in the junior world championships. Um, but yeah, I before last evening was his first college loss. I mean, he was undefeated last year in his redshirt year, undefeated up until that point against Dayton Fix last night. So maybe, and he's a dangerous guy. I mean, he showed that there's no quit in him. He showed that in the DeSanto match, right?
And the Bravo Young
And
match.
and the Bravo Young match, he's down 8-2, and it's like he's got no conscience. He's like, okay, I'm gonna keep wrestling. Good things are gonna happen, and he did. I mean, he threw Bravo Young on his head, right,
Yeah,
and made it count.
absolutely, absolutely. Hey, can I get a sidebar to this? You know what? I love. I am a fan of celebrations in the sport of wrestling. Like, I think people should be allowed to celebrate a little bit when they win. I hate the whole blue collar you can't celebrate type of thing. But you know one celebration I can't stand, Matt, is the shushing thing that everyone does.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
not, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, sometimes it makes sense. Listen, you're in a dual meet, it's like going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you put the nail in the coffin and they can't come back and win, then maybe it makes some sense to shush them, right? But like Austin Gomez shushed the Penn State fans after this match, and it was like, well, they're still going to win the tournament by 100 points. Like, what are you saying? Like, they're going to have 6 champs still. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
you
understand I mean, maybe I'm not young enough to understand it. Maybe that's it. The kids could understand, explain it to me a little more. But I just don't think that's appropriate time to be shushing someone when they're about to effing put 6 in the final, or 8 in the finals and 6 champs. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, especially, I mean, y you're shushing. I mean, if you wanna shush and put the finger to the mouth, that means you close the door, the tournament's over, right?
That's what I
Not
feel.
only just
Yeah,
I'm the same way.
that's what
I'm
it
the
should
same way,
mean.
like, yeah, I mean, if that was Iowa State, if he did that in the finals and that secured the team title
Yeah,
for Iowa State, I think that's appropriate, but yeah, I mean, it shouldn't it shouldn't be your go-to celebration, right?
yeah.
The shush. I
I
mean,
don't think so.
that should be reserved for select situations, and maybe we should provide guidelines for when what celebration is
That'd be too funny. We'll
appropriate
put out guidelines
in
as
what
to when
moment.
to the
So
kids
maybe
can and
we should
cannot be
do
shushing
you
people.
know,
I love it.
the top 5 celebrations at a certain time,
Dude,
and when it's appropriate.
seriously, that I like it. Me and you could put out some guidelines to that. That's hilarious. Um, okay, finals. I thought Dayton looked great. I thought he should totally shut down Austin Gomez. Um, got a couple good, solid double leg, solid overtime slide by, tough on top, got the ride time, looked good on bottom. Um, just good Dayton all around. Smart, wrestles mature. I don't know. I don't have anything else.
Yeah, I think if anything, people have been trying to grasp at straws like, well, he doesn't have enough leg attacks, or he doesn't open up, or he waits on guys. Well, I think I don't think he's listening to the public. I think he's listening to his coaches,
Yeah,
and his coaches are probably encouraging him, like, "Hey, if we're gonna win this thing and you got the tools to win it, you got to open up, and you got to show some diversity in your attacks." And he was attacking both sides of his body. Obviously, I think everybody, when they think about Dayton Fix, they think about his double leg, they think about his inside trip, but he showed some diversity in on his feet, which was good to see. And
yeah.
I think that's probably a scary thing for the rest of the 33 pounders out there, because he looked like he is a force. Like, I mean, that weight class is so deep and you can't overlook. We got defending national champ in the weight class that hopefully is going
He
to get
still he
healthy. But
still hasn't wrestled this year,
yeah,
correct?
yeah, I mean,
He has wrestled
hopefully,
one
yeah,
match.
yeah. So hopefully we get healthy Gross in the next couple months. But outside of that, I think Dayton Fix has kind of stamped himself as he
Well,
might be the
we
guy.
still haven't seen a lot of Steven Mitchell, which I'm excited to see a lot of. Um, and then Suriano, I want to. Oh wait, does Oklahoma State wrestle them also? They do. Hold on.
Holy cow!
'Cause I think they wrestle the same. Let me just
I
go back to. I think they
I think they
wrestle
do.
Princeton and Rutgers on the same trip, so that's going to be. We're gonna get some good stuff that weekend. That's Oh, Matt, you won't see it. You'll be in China.
Oh,
You're gonna
geez.
have to
Yeah,
download a VPN, so you can watch the wrestling because I've had to do that
yeah.
before. Yeah, they
So that's
wrestle
that's coming up quick then.
Princeton on the 12th and Rutgers on the 13th.
Okay,
Yeah, that's coming up real quick. That's a week and a half away. For those of you guys
nice.
who don't know, Matt is going to China next week, which I've made that trip a bunch of times. And depending on where you go or don't go, you could have a blast or you could have a very rough time.
Yeah, we're going to Dongguan working on the shoes, so that should be a fun trip coming up. So,
Yeah. Um, wow. So actually, that same weekend that Rutgers wrestles Oklahoma State, they also wrestle Wisconsin on that Friday. So a lot busy for both teams that weekend.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Okay, so let's go. Next weight class is Nick Lee, Cade Brock, as we talked about earlier, injury defaulted out. So another weight class where I mean, I'll say Real Woods looked. I thought he looked really good in the finals. Uh, and there's I don't have many other feelings about this weight class.
Yeah, I don't have a lot. I mean, I think Nick Lee looked really good. I think Real Woods had a good tournament, but I wouldn't say there was a lot of depth to that. I
Oh,
think, in the finals last night, Real Woods looked really good, came out, got the first takedown, I believe,
yep,
and was putting pressure on Lee, but it didn't look like he was ready to sustain it, and obviously he didn't. But I think
yeah.
that comes
Well,
from that was his probably first really really high level match
mhm.
at the D1 level where you
And
have to
Nick Lee
bring.
wrestles hard. Nick Lee wrestles
He
really hard,
does.
yes.
Yeah, 7 minutes. So I think, I think I heard some of the commentators thinking or talking about, Borelli should pull Real Woods red shirt. I think that's a bit premature. Even though he did make it to the finals, I think he did get controlled overall. He showed some
Yeah.
some good
Well,
moments, but
you know what, can I whine about something for a second, Matt?
yeah.
Um, you know what sucks is that people aren't 100% honest, and that sometimes someone really does get injured and they have to give up the choice of positions, which made this a totally different match because this was a one takedown match. It was 5-3, and it was a one takedown match, and then Real Woods bangs his head off the back of, Nick Lee's head, and then there's an injury time, and now he's gotta, you know, now Nick Lee chooses down, now it's a 2 takedown match, so if everyone was just completely honest about the injury time and never, ever, ever lied about it, we would not have to have that rule, and people could honestly take injury time when it was actually appropriate. Is that
Yeah, and I had mixed feelings a couple years ago when they introduced the injury time rule. If you go injury time automatically, the other man gets his choice. And I think it's a small portion of guys that, do the whirly bird and or they
Yep,
call the lung timeout or whatever you wanna call it. I
say
think that's in the minority, but it became obvious enough in certain situations that people were trying to uh, were trying to game the situation,
yep.
but by and large, I think when guys get hurt, they're mostly hurt by and large, and to kinda penalize
Well,
guys
I
like
mean,
that.
I would say I would be interested to see what the, difference is between, um, how many injury timeouts there were, say, a season or 2 before that, and now how many there are now. I would bet it's way smaller. That'd be my
I bet it is, and maybe you and I, Ben, we're purists,
yeah.
like, there's when you wrestle one way, and if you get hurt most guys, even when they get hurt, they don't call injury time, but,
Yeah,
you
now
know,
they don't
w
because it's a big deal.
yeah, yeah, so you're actually I mean, you could argue that it's to the detriment of the athletes, that the guys that are actually hurt
Yeah,
aren't actually calling timeout because they
yep,
know in critical moments like, that could be the difference in the match, but, yeah, I mean, that's another philosophical sidebar, but yeah, in that situation, there's obviously he got dinged, right?
yes.
And I don't think they did a concussion protocol or anything like that
Yeah,
on
that's the
him.
other thing. I
Uh,
would think in that scenario when it was I don't know, to me, it was obvious that, that he hit his face on the back of Nick Lee's head is what it looked like to me, is that they wouldn't there be a mandatory concussion protocol almost? Or I
I
don't know. I
I
haven't been coaching at the college level since there's been a concussion protocol, so I don't know what the protocol is.
Yeah, you kinda call the trainer in, and the trainer then you kind of then the responsibility, um, of how you lead that situation is handed over to the healthcare provider, whether it's your the athletic trainer on your team or if they have a sports medicine staff on site, then they could actually pull the athlete off the
Well,
mat
that
and get him
yeah.
in a setting where they can and it's unlimited. I mean, they could have gone like 15 minutes to actually run him through a concussion protocol to see what his status was, and then they can make the determination if he wrestles or not. But they didn't go to that. He just kind of shrugged it off, collected his thoughts, cleared his head, and started wrestling again.
Yeah, and so that's I mean, that would be the other thing about that concussion protocols I have seen numerous times. I mean, I had one athlete that I wasn't coaching him specifically, but a high school kid who I coached, and I was just kind of watching a tournament, and he bit his tongue and he kind of like leaned over and held his head, you know? And they gave him concussion protocol and they kicked him out of the tournament. And he was like, "No, no, 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 I bit my tongue." and then they said he was concussed, so it was like maybe a little slightly too much power to the trainers. Yeah, that's a gray area for me. It's I guess I would lean towards overall positive for the sport. But there are certain situations like this is a perfect one where I would have liked to see this be a one takedown match. I think Real Woods was genuinely hurt and he wasn't trying to get an injury break. And I would have liked to see how it played out. And obviously, I think Nick Lee probably would have shut him down, but it makes it a little more interesting if it's one takedown.
Yeah, that's just a rule that it's you can't get it right 100%.
Can't.
And
Impossible.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, 49. Caden Gefeller looking great, continues to look great. And I guess you would say, this is the other hole in Penn State's lineup. Brady Berge loses to Mitch Feinsilver, which Feinsilver's good. He's ranked top 10. Um,
Yeah.
so he's good, but Brady Berge, he's an anomaly because he's a Penn State guy who doesn't generate a lot of offense, which is like they're just offensive dynamos, and so he's got to.
Yeah, I mean, that's gotta be an overall frustration, you know, with their backup too, because Verklieren, he's not like an offensive dynamo himself. So
Yeah, not at
it's
all.
kind of an outliner that not only whoever their starter is, Berge or Verklieren, um, there's probably the same level of frustrations with both those guys in regards to how the conversation goes with the coaching staff. But talk about an embarrassment of riches that, oh, this is one of their holes, and whoever their hole is,
Yeah,
they're probably 2-2 at the national tournament.
I mean, maybe even better. What's Berge ranked? Let me look. He's 13. So
Yeah, so
yeah.
we're talking about this is, wow, what a gaping hole in Penn State's lineup, and he's still a top 15 guy, which I think any other team in the country would say, "Yeah, I'll take that guy," or I'll actually take your backup, whichever one you
Yeah.
you wanna give up.
Absolutely. I agree. Okay, so I'm gonna go with what the kids are doing these days, Matt. They're doing that Nolf next topic, and I think we're gonna say that about 157. Nolf next topic. What do you want to say about Jason?
Yeah. Next, right? I mean, he wrestles his teammate in the finals, and so you gotta give Piper credit,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
absolutely.
most people wanna say, "Wow, this weight class was pathetic," but give the guy some credit. Like, he made it to the finals of a major tournament, and
Absolutely.
it's people will say, "Well, that's not the match I wanted to see," but I would say, "Well, what match
Yeah.
did you wanna see at 157?" There
No.
there weren't any guys in there that you could really get excited
Yeah.
to watch Jason Nolf
Well,
compete against.
I will say for me, Nolf is must see TV. I mean, he's one of those guys where I tune into even his prelims matches, and most guys who are as good as him, I won't even bother watching their prelims matches because it's just not going to be exciting. But I turn him on no matter what. So let's go 65 best weight class at the tournament. Um,
And probably best finals match of the tournament, right?
Yes, I would go yes on both accounts. I mean, Joe Smith, which we're gonna talk about next, that was a good one also. But yeah, Marsteller Joseph, they two takedowns to one, Chenzo over Marsteller. I thought it was an awesome match. Vincenzo, maybe he just likes wrestling close matches because Shane Griffith wrestled him, who's a freshman, wrestled him 6 I thought it was 6'5", not 6'4". Anyways, it says 6'4". I thought it was 6'5".
I
Um,
thought it was 6'5" too.
so and then, he kinda hammers the Rutgers kid, but it was close in the first period. The Rutgers guy got a takedown. I think it was 4-3 to end the first, so it was close for a minute. And then, yeah, Marsteller 6'5" in the finals. Marsteller had a takedown to win kind of at the very end of the match against, Chandler Rogers. He also had a tough match against Mason Manville in the quarters. Yeah, just a really good bracket all around. Um you gotta like Joseph again if they meet at NCAAs. I don't know that Marsteller brings enough offense to the table to beat Vincenzo Joseph, and Vincenzo's very disciplined with his positioning, and his attacks are he's just so explosive and powerful when he goes.
For me, the one thought I had about this match was, and we've all had matches like this. This is more than just this is for this is kind of for bragging rights, PA bragging
But these guys are both
rights.
PA guys. Yeah, you sent me a text late last night, and I was like halfway asleep, so I didn't even bother responding.
Yeah, so I mean, this is I mean, they're both four-time state champs in PA. They never
That was
wrestled.
my coach and I were talking about if they'd ever wrestled, and I thought Marsteller was bigger, so I did not think they had wrestled.
I think Marsteller was always bigger, but yeah, they never wrestled in high school. They were both four-time state champs. Obviously, coming out of high school, everybody was talking about Marsteller, right? I mean, one of the all-time greats coming out of high school. And he's had, some circumstances that he's had to work through, and it's exciting to see that he's bounced back and
Mhm.
got things back in line. But yeah, for me, when I was watching this match, like in the back of their mind, they're thinking, okay, I want to win this tournament. And people are talking about, I'm ranked number one, but in their mind, they're like, there's some bragging rights, PA bragging rights there, right?
Yeah.
That you could settle an argument over probably conversation that people have had, like, well, who's better,
Mhm.
Marsteller or Joseph, and something that I'm sure all the PA people were talking about. So I think there was a little bit more on the line, going back to their youth wrestling days that
Uh,
I was kind of thinking about when they were scrapping. But the one thing that you know doesn't get discussed a lot with the mid-major teams or the lower level teams, that they don't get to see the high level guys consistently. Like
yes.
the Penn State guys and the Big Ten guys, like they're going to see ranked guys week in, week out. With a guy like Marsteller, he doesn't have very many of these opportunities throughout the year,
Yep.
and so for me, after the match, I'm like, I wonder how long this memory is going to last for Marsteller. Like, okay, he hadn't had a high level match like that since the NCAA tournament the
Yep.
previous year.
Yep.
And is he going to be able to remember this for long enough? Like, okay, this is how I have to adjust my intensity. This is how I need to adjust my focus slightly to maintain that throughout a 7-minute match, where Joseph is going to be able to continue to keep that mental conditioning going, because week in and week out, he's got to wrestle at his very highest
Yeah.
level, where
Absolutely.
Marsteller doesn't have to do that often. So will Marsteller be able to jump from here? I think yes. How long will he be able to maintain that is a thought that was going through my head.
Yeah. I agree totally. Um, and Matt, we're running short on time, so we got to start hustling. I think we got just me and you just got going back and forth a little bit too much. Um, So let's skip 174. I thought Joe Smith looked outstanding against David McFadden. He kind of torched him. I mean, 5 takedowns and nothing. Um, the finals was good. Joe Smith was moving really well, and Mark Hall gets the takedown with I don't know. I'll click on it and I'll tell you how much time left. 11 seconds left. Gets the takedown to the back for the win. Um, both of them look good. Well, you got anything else to add?
No, I mean, I think, Joe Smith jumped from Reno. I think we've probably seen, how Okie State's lineup's gonna shake out here with,
Yeah,
Jacoby Smith being the guy at 84, Dakota Gear being the guy at 97. But yeah, I mean, Joe Smith, he looked like it's more than just a Hall Valencia discussion a little bit,
sure.
that whoever Joe Smith wrestles, I mean, it's gonna be a match. And
Yeah, I
so
mean,
it might be, I think everybody has thought it's just a two-man race there, and I think Joe Smith inserted himself at least into the
yeah,
conversation.
because it wasn't like Mark Hall was close to scoring, and somehow Joe Smith just snuck out of it. I mean, that was a back and forth even match kind of the whole way through until Mark gets that last takedown with 11 seconds left. So yeah, I would be excited to see those guys wrestle again. I think I don't believe we will see that until the NCAA tournament if they do end up meeting up. Um, and then I don't think that Zahid and Joe Smith or Oklahoma State wrestle. So we're not going to see any of those matches again till the NCAA tournament, which will make the NCAA tournament significantly more interesting. Um,
Yep.
84, I don't even know Hunter Bolin. I just learned of him yesterday. Uh,
Now, is he a backup or a red shirt?
well,
That's what I'm not clear
I
about.
guess it's gotta be both, right? I mean, I guess you could be a redshirt and a backup, or I guess you could just be just a backup, but Virginia
Yeah.
Tech's got Zach Savatsky at this weight, and so he's the obvious starter there. But Bowen looked great. He beat Jacoby Smith in a tough match. Beats your guy Louis Duprez, and then has he wasn't close to beating Shakur, but it was a good match. I mean, it was close.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy Shakur's a guy, like, he's a momentum guy, right?
Yup,
If he can get on top and put his hands together, you're in big trouble. He didn't have that opportunity, and, if you can eliminate that a little bit with Rashid, then it seems like you have a shot, but, yeah, I was really impressed with Bolin.
absolutely.
Um, I thought Rashid looked good. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I thought, yeah.
Okay, 97. I think we're going nickel next topic.
Nickel next
He's so
topic,
good. He's
right?
good. He's really good.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's the scary thing about that guy, and I think we haven't talked about Nickel that much throughout the year, but I think we both thought, like, people were I don't know why anybody had any questions about how he would do at 97.
People had
For
questions
me,
about that?
I had heard some things, but if
Oh,
for
man.
me, I was like, if anything, that makes him even more
Oh,
dangerous. Him
yeah.
going up a weight
Yes,
class, I'm like,
absolutely.
watch out,
Yeah,
like,
totally agree.
he's holding true, like, yeah, um, 97 is even better to me than 84,
I y
with Nickel.
yep, I agree 100%. Um, okay, so this heavyweight's probably the other good weight class of this tournament because you have essentially both the Penn State guys who are both top 5 guys. You have Derek White, the top 5 guy. You got Billy Miller, he's ranked pretty high. You got Matt Voss, he's ranked. So Button Thomas Haynes ranked, Joey Goodhart ranked. You got a bunch of good guys in here. I thought Derek White looked really good. Kind of the whole way through, kind of hammered Thomas Haynes, who's a tough competitor. He beats Nick Devils 4-0, and then he beats Anthony Cassar, who Cassar has been on a freaking roll this whole year. And Derek White, I don't want to say shuts him down. It was a really competitive match, but you know,
He did, I mean, he put him on lockdown. I
sure,
mean,
okay,
I mean, Cassar didn't really have a legitimate scoring
yes,
opportunity,
that's
and
fair.
I don't wanna be this guy that stereotypes heavyweights because I
I
love heavyweights, and
love
I'm
heavyweights.
but that was the first time that I saw Cassar just kinda stand around and wrestle like your stereotypical heavyweight. He didn't do anything.
You want to hear something funny, Matt? Uh, I said so. I coached Mark Ellis at Missouri, and he won a national title. And then I coached a guy named Levi Cooper at Arizona State, and I got him to All American. And I said to my high school coach, I said, heavyweights, if you understand wrestling, strategically speaking, they're pretty easy to coach because you do have a more limited amount of things you can do because of the body styles, right? Than say
Yep.
a lanky 33 pounder. There's just so many less possibilities. I say if you understand the strategy of wrestling heavyweight, it's a lot easier to coach them. And now for the last decade, he's been saying every time the heavyweights come up, he goes, Ben, it's your favorites. Every time for the last decade now. So I guess
Yeah,
they are my
you
favorites.
I do. I love heavyweights. You know, it's funny, people always scratch my head. I'm a little guy, but I coached a lot of heavyweights throughout my career, even, but yeah, I mean, this is I think what White showed was maybe this is the body type and the style that maybe could give Cassar problems.
Oh,
He's
absolutely.
he's bigger, but not a huge heavyweight, but
Well, Derek White
he's
he
bigger.
was a 197, so he moves pretty well.
Yeah, so he moves well, but he can also yeah, so he can match the athleticism of Cassar, but he looks like a size bigger than
A
Cassar.
little
Like, he
bit,
looked
yeah.
to me, he looked like 15 pounds bigger than him,
Yeah,
and not
that's a
just
good
15
guess. Yep.
pounds, but probably 15 pounds of really functional muscle, not
Yes.
just mass,
Yep.
but really functional size that really yeah, so that was my simple takeaway, like, he was able to match his athleticism, but he was also a little bit bigger,
Yeah.
so kind of overpowered him in some situations, but,
Mm.
yeah, I thought Derek White, I mean, did the same thing to Neville's in the semifinals,
Yep.
so,
Absolutely.
just an outstanding tournament for him.
Yeah, and so we saw Gable beat Derek White. Man, we still haven't seen what Sam Stoll's gonna bring to the table this year. He wrestled one match at Midlands and defaulted out and didn't look great in that match. Amar Desi still, I don't think he's even wrestled a match this year. Um,
Yeah, I mean, hey,
so
you're jumping on Cael for not talking about the Teasdale situation, like, you haven't really heard much from brands about Stoll, right?
Yeah, that's what the hell's Stoll doing? It's now, I mean, it's January now. Let's go. Put him out there. Let's do it.
Yeah, and I'm sure with his off-season instinct, they're not rushing him back. Being a fifth-year guy, they probably don't think like I think a lot of people at this point are like, "Hey, regular season doesn't matter. Dual meets don't matter. You know, we gotta somehow put our 10 best guys out there in March." So I'm sure like Tom Brands is in no
Yeah,
rush to put Sam Stoll out there.
that's fair. Okay, Matt, we're way over time. Um, you got anything else for the people before this will be you'll be out for a while because you're going to China. So can I guess I can make the exciting announcement that I will be doing some podcasting with Kyle, the Kyle Snyder. And obviously I've accomplished a lot this sport, but kind of as a wrestling fan and a nerd, like this is gonna be a lot of fun. I'm pretty pumped about it. I'm really excited.
Yeah, he's looking forward to it. I was just with Kyle yesterday. He's fired up to do this. Also, the one other thing that I wanted to mention that Carrie Colat and I have started another podcast, which is in a completely different vein than what we discuss here. Um, so the first podcast with Carrie and I will go out on Friday at some point, and that'll be a weekly series. We'll be doing one episode a week. So for people that are looking for more content on RUDIS, we'll be having that in addition to your exclusive interview with Kyle here coming up.
Yeah, and if we're talking about other stuff, I also have we got so much stuff coming out, Matt. We also have the Funky Fight Camp, which is coming out. The first 2 episodes, at least, I don't know, probably next week sometime, which is kind
Yeah.
of so those first 2 episodes are kind of me getting back into training and that kind of thing, and then we'll the follow me a little bit more as the fight progress as the fight camp progresses as we get closer to the fight, and so I'm biased, obviously, but I think they're fairly interesting.
No, it was cool. I got a I got
Uh,
a I got a sneak peek of it yesterday. So yeah, it'll be I'm looking forward, on the outside looking in, getting a firsthand look behind everything that's going on behind your fight camp, the next 2 months.
Absolutely. All right, Matt, that was fun. I will talk to you. I won't talk to you next week. I'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Have a good day.
Yeah. All right, man.
See ya.
We'll see you.